As I look around this room, I can't help but feel excited. I'm excited for each of the students at this high school because you are entering into the most amazing part of your life. You have so much to look forward to. Going off to college, starting a career, getting married, and having a family, or whatever it is that you dream for yourself. In some sense, this is truly the beginning of your lives, and you have endless possibilities ahead for your future. But how would you feel if I told you that this was going to be the end of your life? Because that's what doctors told my parents when I was born with a fatal disease called cystic fibrosis. The doctors told them to love me and to cherish the time they had with me, but not to expect me to live to be an adult, as my life expectancy was less than 18 years old. The doctors explained that cystic fibrosis, or CF, is a genetic disease for which there is no cure. That CF causes the body to produce abnormally thick, sticky mucus, which harbors bacteria, causes chronic lung and sinus infections, makes breathing very difficult, and eventually leads to lung failure. The thick mucus also clogs the pancreas and prevents the absorption of food, causing many people with cystic fibrosis to be very thin and malnourished. So, my parents took the doctor's advice. They loved me, and they cherished me, and they tried to protect me from anything and everything that could endanger my health. As a result, my early childhood was defined by what I could not do. I could not go outside and play with my friends because I had to sit and take breathing treatments for hours each day. I could not go to a friend's birthday party because someone else at the party had a cold, and it was too dangerous for me to risk getting sick. I was the only student in the entire 5th grade who couldn't go away to science camp. It was simply too difficult to do my medical regimen away from home. And no matter how much I ate, I could not absorb my food properly or gain weight, and was extremely thin. So the kids at school would tease me constantly. Of course, now that I'm older, people don't tease me. They envy me, because I can eat whatever I want and as much as I want, and I won't gain weight. I have definitely been known to take down 3 boxes of macaroni and cheese by myself and then go out to dinner. But living with cystic fibrosis is a daily challenge. Every day, I take breathing treatments, and I use a device called the vest, which inflates and vibrates at high frequencies to loosen up the mucus and clear it from my lungs. I also take around 40 pills a day, including digestive enzymes with every meal. My whole medical routine takes 2 hours a day, and that's when I'm healthy. Even catching a simple cold usually results in round-the-clock treatments for 3 to 4 weeks. But when I was young, having cystic fibrosis was really just a nuisance to me. I did not understand the true implications of my disease. That is, until I was 10 years old. That's when my parents sat me down to tell me that my only friend with cystic fibrosis had passed away. She was 12 years old. I could not believe that my friend had died, someone I had really looked up to. I was devastated. It took a while for it to sink in, and then it hit me. I looked up at my dad with tears streaming down my face, and I asked him, "Is that what's going to happen to me?" That was the day that my life changed forever, because that was the day that I learned that my disease was not just a daily annoyance, it was deadly. So at that very young age of 10, I was faced with a life-altering question. Am I going to let the knowledge of my fate define the rest of my life? Or am I going to live my life to the fullest despite my illness? I had to decide how I was going to live my life regardless of how much time I had. Was I going to be a victim of my disease or a survivor? Being 10, all I had ever really wanted was to feel normal, to be able to do things like my peers. I hadn't thought that much about my future. But one thing I knew for sure is that I wanted to travel, to see the world. And specifically, I wanted to live abroad in a foreign country, my favorite country, Australia. That was my dream. But realistically, knowing that I wasn't even able to sleep over at a friend's house, I couldn't imagine how I could possibly go to the other side of the world. But living in Australia was just one of the many things that I wanted to do. Above all, I wanted my life to be meaningful. I grew up living a different life than my peers. While my friends were worrying about what dresses they were going to wear to prom, I was wondering, would I live long enough to attend my prom? While my friends were enjoying their winter break vacations from school, I was enduring my yearly hospitalizations, hooked up to IVs, and having round-the-clock respiratory therapy. And after high school, as my peers began to lose touch with their friends, I was physically losing many of my CF friends to this disease. You see, the hardest part about having cystic fibrosis is not the hospitalizations or the surgeries. It's not the nights of endless coughing or even the struggle to breathe. The hardest part about having cystic fibrosis is having watched some of my dearest friends suffer and lose their lives to this disease. Seeing this, it would have been really easy for me to give up on my dreams and give in to my fate. And there were times when I almost did. Times when I felt so defeated that I could not imagine accomplishing my goals. It felt hopeless. What was the use in planning for a future that my doctor said I would never have? Have you ever wanted to give up on something because you felt or were told that it was useless to try? I have learned in my life that how you respond to those perceived limitations will dramatically impact your future. Maybe it's because of my situation, but I hate being told that I can't do something. In fact, the easiest way to motivate me to do something is to tell me that I can't do it because I have CF. One of my favorite sayings is by James Dean: "Dream as if you will live forever, and live as if you will die today." I decided to take his advice, and along the way, I learned that many of my limitations were perceived, not real. Regardless of the challenges that I have faced in my life, I am so grateful for the life I have lived, and unbelievably grateful to all the people who have gotten me to the point where I am today. My life has been filled with wonderful memories, with love and happiness, accomplishments and milestones. I probably missed more days of high school than I attended, but I graduated with a 3.9 GPA and got into almost every college to which I applied. I will never forget when my parents got out a map, placed it on the table, and drew a ring around our house in Orange County. They told me, "You can go to any college within a 1-hour radius of our home." But I had my heart set on UC Santa Barbara, so I somehow convinced my parents that if there's absolutely no traffic on the 101 freeway, you can actually make it from Orange County to Santa Barbara in 1 hour. And they bought it. It's unbelievable. You see, I always loved challenging my limitations, even if they were parent-made. I loved my time at UC Santa Barbara. Go Gauchos. And even though I had to take a semester off to be hospitalized with pneumonia, I graduated in time with my friends and with honors. And then, of course, there was Australia. Against the wishes of my doctors and parents, the day finally came when I went across the world by myself to experience the land down under. And as I stepped off that plane, I realized I had really done it. After everything that I had been through, after 10 sinus surgeries and 2 stomach surgeries, after more hospitalizations and trips to the emergency room than I can count, after my childhood was defined by what I could not do, and after thinking that my dream would never come true, I had finally made it to Australia. I was ready and excited to experience this new adventure and true freedom for the first time in my life. But on my first day in Australia, I ended up in the hospital. I had a major intestinal blockage, and the doctors in Australia were not sure what they should do. This is one of the many times in my life where I had a decision to make. Was I going to let CF stop me from realizing my dream? Or would I refuse to accept this limitation? So even though I was terrified, I made the decision to stay in Australia, and I did for a whole year. Thank you. Traveling with cystic fibrosis can be very challenging, especially overseas. My treatment machine broke the very first time I plugged it into the foreign outlet, and my replacement treatment machine set off the fire alarm in my hostel. And as the Australian firemen burst into my room to put out a fire, I had to charm my way out of a $500 fine. But that's one of the stories I really can't complain too much about, because after all, how often are hot Australian firemen in your room? My time in Australia was amazing. But while I was there, I developed another potentially life-threatening condition: the uncontrollable urge to go bungee jumping. I also went skydiving and scuba diving in the Great Barrier Reef. I swam with sharks, I rappelled down waterfalls, and I fed kangaroos. But my time in Australia was so much more than just a trip or even a dream come true. It was proof to myself that I could overcome my most challenging obstacles. If I could go across the world and overcome the things that were thrown my way, I could do anything. A long time ago, I made the decision to be a survivor. But that was not just a one-time decision. It's a decision that I have to continue to make every day of my life. But more than just being a survivor, I want to do everything that I possibly can to help others with this disease. So I got involved with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. And when I was 14 years old, I began fundraising and speaking at events. And over the past 13 years, I have helped to raise awareness and millions of dollars towards medical research for a much-needed cure. I have lobbied at the state capitol, speaking to legislators about important healthcare reform. I was an employee at the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation for several years, and I now work as a patient advocate at a specialty pharmacy, helping others with CF to navigate this difficult disease. And then, this past year, one of the most significant things happened in my life that made me realize that I'm achieving my ultimate goal: to live a meaningful life, both despite CF and because of it. That's when my family and I were flown out to Washington, D.C. to attend a national cystic fibrosis conference. And in front of 600 of cystic fibrosis' biggest supporters, I was presented with the Alex Award. This is an award given to one individual with cystic fibrosis in the United States who is fighting this battle with courage and determination, and who is an inspiration to others with the disease. I have learned that having limitations can make us feel defeated and cause us to give up. Or these obstacles that we face can actually motivate us to push harder to accomplish our goals. And when we achieve them, it is that much more meaningful. Now, at the age of 27, I am living 9 years past my life expectancy. And thanks to the incredible progress in cystic fibrosis research during my lifetime, I now have hope for a real future, one where I can fulfill all of my dreams. We are not there yet, but for the first time in my life, I can truly imagine it. What I can't imagine is what my life would have been like if I had given up, if I had let my perceived limitations become my reality. For those of you in high school, this is the beginning of your lives, a life that you can build as you want it to be. So here is my challenge that I want to leave you with today. Don't let your limitations, both real or perceived, limit your dreams. Determine how to overcome your challenges and create the life that you want and deserve. Thank you.